is being chaired by no less a person. We mute ourselves until we're about to speak, until we're recognized to speak. Professor Tar, I know your mic is on. You'll speak very soon. Just hold on for us. The session today is being chaired by no less a person than the retired Lieutenant General Abdulrahman B. Dambazau. It's interesting that the armed forces is a very interesting place. That's where a lieutenant is higher than a major, and a major is higher than a brigadier when you get to the general's rank. Retired Lieutenant General Abdulrahman Dambazau was born on 14th of March 1954 and served as the Chief of Staff of Nigerian Army from August 2008 to September 2010. He was also our Honorable Minister of the Interior, Federal Republic of Nigeria from November 2015 to May 2019. Our armed forces have been populated by some of the most cerebral individuals I've known in the last, only God knows how many years. And General Dambazau is not an exception. General Dambazau holds the BSc degree in criminal justice, an MA in political science, an MED in education administration, and a PhD in criminology. And I wonder why it's not an academic, why it's not in the university teaching for us. This is the kind of leadership we've had in the armed forces in the past few years, where highly cerebral people have taken charge. And it's my pleasure that this man is with us today. He is a fellow, or he was a fellow, of the Weatherhead Center for International Affairs, Harvard University, from 2012 to 2013, and was an associate of the same center from 2013 to 2014. General Dambazau is a scholar, as you can see, somebody with only God knows how many postgraduate degrees. He's a scholar and researcher whose research focuses majorly on African regional security. Is therefore, I think, a most appropriate person to chair today's session, which is on insurgency and environmental security in the Lake Chad Basin and the Sahel, a focus on Northeast Nigeria. Professor Usman Tar is the speaker. Like I said earlier, is Honorable Commissioner for Information and International Security of Borno State, and also an endowed chair of Defense and Security Studies at the NDA. In a minute, I'll hand over to our chairperson for today, General Dambazau, but just quickly want to make an announcement in case we have people who are dropping off before the meeting is over. For the next couple of weeks, during the Ramadan season, we'll be starting our session a little earlier by 4:30, so that latest by 5:45, we'll conclude the session so as to allow our Muslim brothers and sisters to go and observe their prayer time. So please bear with us. We'll be starting a little earlier so that we can finish a little earlier. We'll be a little bit more strict with time because we don't want to wear out people who are fasting during the period. So, but I'll make this announcement again before we close. Let me just hand you over to General Dambazau, who is my chairman for today, and let me welcome you once again to today's program. General Dambazau, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Can you hear?
Yes, we can hear you. We can hear you, sir.
We can hear you, sir.
Giving me this opportunity to chair this dialogue. I believe that this is the fourth dialogue based on the revised database you posted. And I'm glad to chair it, not only that, but also I'm very much aware of the distinguished speaker of today, Professor Usman Tar. We have something in common because I noted in his CV he served in various capacities in Nigerian Defence Academy. I was the Academy Registrar for about 6 years. So I know very much that environment, apart from the fact that I also trained there. Having said that, I want to briefly, even though the professor's CV has been posted, but by way of formality, I just want to take a few minutes to introduce him as our guest speaker today. As you know that the professor is a PhD holder in Peace and Conflict Studies from University of Bradford in the UK, and also is an endowed professor of Defense and Security Studies of the Nigerian Defence Academy. Now, I believe it is now, so he's a commissioner for information and internet security, which is a very huge task in that part of the country now because of the challenges of insurgency and terrorism we've been facing for over a decade there now. He served variously in various capacities as a former dean in the Faculty of Arts and Social Sciences and a director, Center for Defense Studies and Documentation in the same academy, an alumnus of University of Maiduguri with a first-class degree in political science. And he has authored so many books, I think about 30 of them, and several scholarly journals. He's a consultant for international organizations, and he has his CV is quite rich. And by virtue of the fact that he is well grounded in that area that we are focusing discussion on, that Lake Chad Basin, environmental security in the region. Please note, I want to invite the professor to use no more than 40 minutes of our presentation because time is of essence. We have to give enough time for others to be able to ask questions, contributions, and make some clarifications. And I'm going to be very strict about timing. So, Professor Usman Tar, you have the next 40 minutes, please, to make your presentation. And the floor is over to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, General. Before I start, can you hear me? I just want to confirm if you can hear me and you can see me.
We can hear you.
Yeah, I can hear you. I can see you.
We cannot see you.
You can see
Can
me?
can you turn on your video?
We can see you.
But...
Can hear you.
Okay. I can see you, even though your face is a bit dark there. Maybe you need some lighting in there.
Okay, I am in a dark. Well, if you can see my silhouette, it's okay, sir.
Are you shy?
No, my location is a bit, this never problem.
It's a security.
Okay. All right. Go ahead, please.
Just go ahead.
Bear with my poor picture quality. Okay,
thank you, sir. I'm here in I'm in Cairo. There's no NEPA here. There's no NEPA here.
Okay, thank you, sir. My time is on, so let me move straight to the task ahead. The title of my presentation at the point of picking the topic was insurgency and environmental security in the Lake Chad Basin. But in the process of gathering materials for this paper, I decided to add Sahel because Lake Chad Basin and Sahel are coterminous. They enter into each other. They are sandwiched into each other, and Sahel is bigger than Lake Chad Basin, but they exist side by side. So I decided to match the two together. I also decided to focus on the Northeast with regards to the real impact of environmental, insurgency and environmental security in the Sahel. Northeast presents a test case for what insurgency to do to the environment in the Lake Chad Basin and in the Sahel. Due to time factor, I will just want to introduce and skip the conceptual discourse because that will take my time. I have 51 slides and conceptual is a few slides. So I'm going to just mention the concepts that I defined. By way of introduction, the Lake Chad Basin and the West African Sahel have been a theater of violent conflicts and civil wars for quite some time now. Various forms of conflict, such as resource-based, ideological, ideational, resource struggles for power, have conspired to unleash what scholars call a geography of unstable and volatile states in the region. We have environmental crisis, of course, the recession of the Lake Chad Basin from its normal size in 1970s to 10% of its size. That is, the Lake Chad Basin has receded by 90%, as well as political instability, civil war, insurgencies, weak border systems, transnational crimes have combined to create the largest conflict hotspot in sub-Saharan Africa. And within the basin and within the Sahel, we have such concepts as ungoverned space, ungovernable space, or undergoverned spaces, depending on how one sees it. The fact is that we have crisis of governance, crisis of environmental management, crisis of resource management, all bedeviled by insurgency, terrorism, proliferation of small arms and light weapons in the region. The human and financial outlays of armed conflict are so massive that many people have stopped to ponder on what conflict does to the environment, rivers, lakes, vegetation, and wildlife. The environment is usually in the back burner when we are talking about the impact of insurgency. What comes to mind are human displacement, infrastructure, and so on. The environment on which human habitation and human beings exist is usually put in the back burner. And that is the gap that this paper tries to fill. And in doing so, we focus specifically on Nigeria. Let me now move to my introduction, which is larger, but for want of time, let me just move to the next section. But before I do that, let me emphasize that in the context of Nigeria, which remains the key focus of this study, the most important factor is the Boko Haram insurgency that started as a radical Islamist movement in 2009. The story of the Boko Haram is all familiar now, and I wouldn't want to take much of your time other than to say that the insurgency has transformed into an ideological religious extremist movement into a business now. It is a business entity, and we have newer actors that are coming up in this business enclave. We have, merchants of violence. We have small arms dealers. We have, all sorts of, new actors. The original actors that started the Boko Haram insurgency, 90% of them to 95% of them have all gone. They are dead. We have new actors who have no idea of the original concept of Boko Haram, and therefore the conflict has transformed into what we call, business, war economy. That is what we are having today. And that is the point I want to make by way of introduction. So what Boko Haram is doing in terms of destroying lives, property, infrastructure, with huge implications for the environment, we have to understand that we are dealing with a, with a phenomenon that has transformed over the past 10, 15 years into a large conglomerate with affiliation to global terror fraternity and with support from all over the world, clandestine support that has led to the Boko Haram that we are seeing today. And don't ignore the role of some state actors, even though we really need research to pin down those state actors that are supporting the Boko Haram. But it is quite possible that a number of states are supporting the Boko Haram. And this much is within the ongoing discourse today, as we speak. Since 2009, more than 20,000 people have been killed by Boko Haram. I think the number is even larger. In terms of displacement, even in Borno State alone, we have 2.5 million people displaced. So the total quantum of displacement is quite larger. Could be up to 6 million or more. The next section is conceptual. I only want to state here that I conceptualize the key terms, terrorism, insurgency, violent conflict, organized crime, counter-terrorism, counter-insurgency, and then the nexus, environmental security, and then the nexus between these concepts. And I want to just take 1 minute to emphasize that in terms of the nexus between insurgency, terrorism, environmental security, we have a number of theoretical assumptions. And I am able to pull out, using the literature from Barry Buzan et al. 1998 and others, Zalkowski's 2012, I was able to pull out 5 ways of thinking about the connection between these concepts. There's resource scarcity school. I can't talk too much on that because of want to time.
Now we need.
Resource abundance school, there's climate change school, there's human security school, and national disaster school. They have the same kind of thesis, but there are variations. But I want to allow the audience to read at their leisure time. Now, the next section is a background on the geography, the geographical space called the Lake Chad Basin and the Sahel. Here too, I want to just be very quick because my key section is actually the section 5, which is impact of insurgency, armed conflict, counter-terrorism on environmental security in the Sahel with focus on Northeast. That is the key. That is the thesis of my presentation. So let me be quick about the background. The enclave called the African Sahel, which include the Lake Chad Basin, is about 3,000, maybe 3 million. I think the figure I can't. 3,860 kilometer arc-like landmass. But I think that figure is not correct because even Borno State alone is 72,000 square kilometers. I think it's about 3 million, yeah. But the point is, we are dealing with a very large landmass equivalent to so many countries in Europe, if not the whole of Europe. And where states are weak.
Hello?
Hello, sir.
You say
Can you hear me? Hello? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Prof. We can hear you.
Some people are talking and disturbing the lecture. Please, people should mute their microphone because I get disturbed and my time is on.
Mute your mic. The network is not good, so mute your mic.
Can you hear me now? I am using another mic.
We can hear you. Continue, sir.
Okay. So in summary, the Sahel and Lake Chad Basin are a very large swath of land, equivalent to so many countries in Europe. We have weak states governed by coalition of elites in most, and democracy, in terms of democracy, there is democratic deficit. In terms of environmental governance, there is governance deficit. In terms of resource governance, there is deficit. And therefore, this kind of environment provides a veritable ground for insurgents, for terrorists, for criminals, transnational criminals, for bandits, for cattle rustlers to emerge and make a brisk business. And the environment, the terrain is also rough and marshy in some places. And, the vegetation is thick, especially in the core of the Lake Chad. And it provides all year-round potential for food system that can support the insurgents. That is the background we are dealing with. And in terms of political alliances, there is a lot of friction between the political elites and states that cohabit in this region. A very good example is the attempt by, or actually a reality by Niger, Burkina Faso, and Mali to exit from the West African, economic conflicts, economic community. So the states are not very strong; they are not very united, and therefore it is a fertile ground for insurgents and other criminals to emerge and make brisk business. That is summary the background on the Lake Basin and the Sahel. Let me just introduce one or two maps before I move to the next section. This is a map of the Sahel. When we say Sahel, of course, we have other countries beyond Nigeria, Niger, Chad, and Cameroon. Where Libya is part of it. There is no way you talk of Nigeria or the Nigerian people, especially in the north, without talking about the Libyans, because these are communities that are, connected by historical factors. We have Mali, Mauritania, Niger, Chad, Burkina Faso, Nigeria, of course, Cameroon, Algeria, Ivory Coast, Guinea. These are all part and parcel of the Sahel. And the countries in pink, there are countries that are that is Al-Qaeda in the Maghreb affiliates, and ISIS affiliates, and of course there are blue spots that you can see around northeast Nigeria. That thick blue bubbles, they are Boko Haram enclaves. And you can see some brown dots. These are Akim, where they are dispersed, and they are moving freely, almost, 24/7, but especially in the night. They are moving freely and, on ground. But on air, we hear stories of all sorts of aircrafts coming to deliver, materials, supplies to these groups. So therefore, they are very cumbersome and formidable force to reckon with. The next map that I want to introduce, okay, but before then, I want to also emphasize that there are certain factors that define the Sahel. One is the exploration of African-led groups. That is, there are so many groups emerging and counting, not only Boko Haram, but within them there are also splitters. But they are formidable, and in difficult times they do come together to fight the state. From time to time they do come together, unite to fight the state. From sometimes they also disunite. But at any point in time, they give headache to the local state. Next. The next point of emphasis is that state collapse in North Africa, especially Libya, has given further impetus to the rise of insurgents and terrorists in the Sahel and Chad Basin, particularly the movement of small arms and the stockpiles from Libya, from Tunisia, Egypt, have actually made these groups very formidable to deal with. That is the next point. Then the next point is there is a shift in tactics in terms of the way the states confront these groups. There is a shift of tactics from regular counterinsurgency kinetic method to now irregular. There is emphasis now, even though the local military establishments are still more comfortable with the kinetic, but they are also shifting their focus to the irregular, to the non-kinetic. This is Shekau before he's dead. I try to show this in my presentation because of the machine, the equipment at the background. This is MRAF. MRAF is very expensive, and it's not easy not possible. There's no way a violent, non-state actor can, acquire, MRAF except through invasion of the stockpiles of the state. And that is a very powerful, point maker in terms of how formidable these groups are. The point that I was trying to make. They wear uniforms, when they're on the checkpoints or on the roads, you wouldn't even notice them until you come and bump into them and you realize you are in the wrong place at the wrong time. And they make a lot of money kidnapping people on daily basis. On daily basis. And there are a lot of youth in the region, youth watch. Drug is very, very common, small arms, as you can see them, they are carrying small arms. And the environment is very fertile and very comfortable for them to do their nefarious activity. So I think that is where I want to stop in terms of the region and the background. This map shows the interconnection between the groups and all the terror groups, and also the factors that underpin the terror groups, and the nature of the state in the region. We have weak states. We also have a number of terror groups. We have a very rough terrain. The Sahara Desert is there. The environmental encroachment is there. So many factors going on. Now, the next is insurgency environmental security in the Northeast, a case study of Northeast Nigeria. Basically, here I am trying to give a focus on the story of Boko Haram. This story, as I said, is familiar, but I want to emphasize here that Boko Haram is not homegrown, but the majority of the actors are, locals. But the idea behind Boko Haram is not homegrown. It's from the Middle East. It's from our Wahhabi theological system. And that system has really contaminated the belief system in the region, which hitherto was basically the, Sufi, Qadriya, Tijaniya movement and so on. But with the rise of the Wahhabi theology, as a result of the mass exodus of Islamic scholars to the Middle East, Saudi Arabia, Sudan, and so on, to go and study there. When they returned back, they came back with Wahhabi ideology, and the rest is history. So that is the story in that, the key thesis in that section. So I want to skip that section and move straight to the key section, because I know General Dambazau, as a registrar, he will stop me when the time comes. That's for sure. So the key section now is the impact of insurgency on environmental security in the Northeast. The natural environment has been a strategic element of war, and the natural environment is also usually the first victim of war. But this much is not appreciated in the literature, is not appreciated in policy, is not appreciated in public discourse. Speaking of environmental cause of armed conflict, the former UN Secretary General notes, that is Ban Ki-moon, he noted in 2014, the environment has long been a silent casualty of war and armed conflict, from the contamination of land and destruction of forest to the plunder of natural resources and the collapse of management systems. The environmental consequences of war are often widespread and devastating. From then on, the impact of environment became much more recognized in the literature, but it's still not that much recognized. Now, we carried out study a few years ago, 2-3 years back, already published. And in that study, we arrived at 3 environmental zones of insurgency and terrorism in the Northeast Nigeria, and indeed the Sahel and Lake Chad Basin. That environmental taxonomy is built not only on the physical environment, but also in the demographic context and all the systems that are within the environment of this domain. The first zone is what we called the domain, the hot zone. The hot zone is the domain where the armed operatives exist, where the armed forces encounter the operatives. And in the process of the encounter, they do a lot of damage to the environment in terms of, putting explosive and mines, landmines, improvised explosive devices in the land, and also unexploded munition. All of these will impact or do impact on water systems, on agricultural land, and therefore the environment becomes not fertile. It becomes difficult for farming. It becomes very dangerous to venture out and farm. And don't forget that as the military confront the armed forces, the insurgents, and the terrorists, there is the cleared zone and also the dangerous zone, the safe corridor. The safe corridor is where people can operate, and the mining has taken place and so on and so forth. But it's still hot because the dangerous hotspots are where people are not even allowed to venture. All of these collectively, we call them the hot zone. Sambisa Forest is a good example. It's an ungoverned space. It remains ungoverned, even though the armed forces from time to time, they do go and capture, but they leave it. But the terrorists come and take over. We also have what we call the warm zone. The warm zone is a terrain in the cities, in peri-urban areas, in some rural areas that are emancipated, where we have people residing. But within the demography, the warm zone, we are emphasizing on the demography. Within the demography, we have critics and those who are sitting on the fence. You can go to IDP camp. In that IDP camp, not all of them are IDP. We know, but it's very difficult to fish out those that are dangerous. They also wear the same dress. They wear the same, very sorry looking faces. But some of them are enthusiastic of the insurgency. And when the armed forces is planning, or when they see movement of the armed forces, they find a way to report to the insurgents, much so that the armed forces is usually frustrated to find out that when they plan a very beautiful battle plan, when they go there, the insurgents have left. That all of this happens in what we call the warm zone of the insurgency and terrorism. Then we have the cold zone. In cities and in rural areas, we have defenseless citizens, innocent farmers, young kids, children, old people that are susceptible to incursion, recruitment, kidnapping, radicalization. That is called zone of the conflict. The cold zone is usually the zone that is secured by our armed forces, but they are also vulnerable. So that is what our study found out. And we try to also build an illustration of this analysis. Now I move to the key impact factors of the insurgency environmental security connection. The first impact factor is infrastructural decay and serious impact on air and water pollution. The water in the Lake Chad Basin, particularly in Maiduguri, parts of Cameroon, parts of Niger, the water system is contaminated. So much so that cases of renal failure, cases of dermatological conditions, cases of children born with all sorts of deformities are very high. In fact, in Maiduguri, the cases of renal failure is very much high that it has already raised concern of the government, and government is now commissioning a research to look into the subject matter. And research is ongoing. If you go to University of Maiduguri Teaching Hospital, the kidney center is overpopulated with patients, and people are dying on daily basis. And of course, the water system is contaminated as a result of the the impurities caused by heavy munitions, caused by heavy activities of military and also of the insurgents. The next factor is The next factor is destruction of biodiversity. Majority of northeastern vegetation, being analogous in structure, is facing damage as a result of the ongoing conflict. The physical environment in the northeast, which has hitherto been facing environmental degradation, is further defaced by armed conflict. According to National Policy Environment, which we revised, drought and desertification, that is in addition to the insurgency itself, we already have ongoing, sources of, environmental degradation, but insurgency actually compounded it. So drought and desertification are by far the most pressing environmental problem afflicting the region. The visible sign of desertification resulting from persistent drought and climatic change is a gradual shift in vegetation from grasses to bushes. If you go to we just returned back from the Kwa area. If you go to that area, as far as your eyes can see, there is not a single tree standing. They are all gone. So we are so worried how the trees in the first instance, the tree was sparse in the 70s and 80s. Now they are all gone. And even the military were not helping matters. The insurgents are not helping matters. The military, they hate any tree, anything that they deem to be obstacle, or anything that will allow the enemy to approach them without their notice. They destroy it. And of course, in wars, dirty things happen. And you don't blame the military, but it is what it is. If you go to the Abadam, Kukawa, Baga manufacturing area, there is no tree standing. You can't see any tree standing. Just dots of trees for hundreds of kilometers. And of course, we take cross manufacturing, we are talking about 80 kilometers. You can't see any tree standing. So biodiversity is affected. Where tree is not there, the environmental biodiversity, the toss in the biodiversity, they die, and the land become impossible for farming. But don't forget the unexploded miniatures are also there, in addition to the lack of trees and so on, and the foliage. Then we have the problem of the next factor is chronic food insecurity. Of course, this is self-explanatory. Military machinery and explosives have caused unprecedented level of deforestation and habitat destruction. Agricultural production is impaired by intensive bombing, especially during all these operation, Zaman Dole, Operation Lavia Dole, Operation Hadinke, and so on, Operation Yaki. But during all these times, there were heavy bombing. And as I speak to you, there is heavy bombing going on. We are even happy the bombing is going on, because if bombing will lead to the end of the problem, if bombing will lead to decisive blow on the adversary, let it be done, but let it be done quickly. Otherwise, it will be very difficult to restore food systems. It will be very difficult to restore the environment. The environment takes time to recharge. If war continues in the form of protracted conflict, the one that happened in Sri Lanka and so on, it will be very difficult for this generation, our generation, to witness the complete or even partial restoration of environmental security and environmental diversity in the Lake Chad Basin. My eye has seen it, and I am very worried. So this military operation, our prayer has always been, and our state government has actually supported the military 24/7. Let the operation be swift. Let them deal with the enemy. Let them do whatever they want to do. Let them pull out, recapture and pull out. Let the environment recover. Otherwise, food security will be impaired. The next factor is unexploded munition. In most liberated areas, the insurgents have left behind unexploded munition. The armed forces too, not all of their explosives may have exploded. And it will take years for those munitions to be cleared. Don't forget that in Libya, we still have unexploded munitions that are left behind as a result of the Second World War. So in Borno State too, we have a lot of unexploded munitions. The National Security Advisor's Office just opened a new office, regional office of the National Mine Action Center. The Borno State government granted them an office and they just started work. And we are happy that and hopeful that this center will do a good job. And on this, in spite of the criticism against non-governmental organization, there is the Global Mine Action Group that has done good job in Iraq and other places. If they too will come, probably they are already there. The work of cleaning up and decontaminating the northeast from unexploded devices will be faster. Otherwise, unexploded devices too will be a problem for many years to come. Then we have threat of depleted uranium munition. The Air Force, they drop a lot of heavy bombs of different categories, different calibers. Some of them do not explode, and the danger of depleted uranium munition is there. And like the unexploded devices, they are also hazards to the environment. So these are some of the direct impact on the environment that the Boko Haram insurgency and terrorism, and of course the state's response have impacted on the environment. So let me conclude. I don't know whether my time is up or General Dambazau is being kind with me. The West African Sahel and the Lake Chad Basin constitute a key specter of violent conflict and state instability in Africa, with significant implications for regional and global security. The states in the Sahel are engulfed in violent conflicts, civil wars, resource wars, insurgencies, and communal conflicts. The symptoms of state in the region, such as state disintegration, crisis of legitimacy, economic crisis, environmental crisis, have adversely affected the local states and regional complexes within the region.
Did you lose contact? What's happening?
Hello?
Cannot hear anything again.
Yeah, can you hear me?
General Dambazau, can hear you, but we can't hear the speaker.
Yeah.
Again.
I think it's something is wrong with this. Fortunately, he has completed. He has finished the presentation. Okay, he's back now. Hello, Professor Tar. Hello, Professor Tar.
The network in Maiduguri is not always good.
It's back, but his mic is muted. Yeah, he joined with two devices. The second one is still off. Yeah, okay. Professor Tar, can you unmute the mic of this one that is showing you? Yeah, because your other device is cut off completely, including the slides that you shared. But I think you have concluded, so you can just round up using this one. So Tar, are you still with us? We can see you. Your mic is unmuted. Or we cannot hear you speak. Okay.
I think it's virtually concluded.
It's concluded, but
Yeah, he has concluded.
Anything.
Yeah, it's a sudden disappearance that
is on. Don't mute yourself, Professor Tar.
Hello? Hello?
Yes.
Yes,
Professor Tar.
we can hear you. We can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Can you hear me?
Can you quickly conclude? Yes, we can hear you now. Can you quickly conclude?
We can hear you, Prof.
Okay, I think I have concluded. My conclusion is that the insurgency and the state's response to insurgency have become double jeopardy to the environment in the Northeast and indeed the Lake Chad Basin. That is the key thesis of my conclusion.
Professor Tar, let me apologize for the network challenge, but I hope we can still have some meaningful dialogue. I will hand over back to the chairman, General Dambazau, who is actually joining us from Cairo. General Dambazau, please, you can coordinate the response.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Can you hear me? Thank you very much. I think he has concluded. I think his last sentence, he wanted to say that they were experiencing double jeopardy from the state and from the insurgents. I mean, activities of the state in terms of the counter-insurgency and counter-terrorism operations, and also from the activities of the insurgents. Now we have more time because I was able to finish his presentation in less than 40 minutes. But I don't know if I have to recap.
General, sir, I will suggest we start the discussions and then
Yes.
Tar will join us.
Yes, that's what we are doing now. Can you hear me, Professor Isaac? Hello?
You are audible, sir.
Can you hear me?
Your mic is muted, Professor Albert. Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, sir. We can hear you, sir.
We are continuing. He will join us later, but virtually yes. He has finished his presentation.
Yes.
Like I said, he was only trying to conclude that there is issue of double jeopardy because the impact is coming from both the operations being carried out by the state, that is the counter-insurgency and counter-terrorism operations, and also the activities of the insurgents to the environment. He has expanded his topic not only on the Lake Chad Basin, but also Sahel region as a whole, and which he focused on the environment, Northeast as a test case of what the insurgency does to the environment. And also that he notes that this is at the background of the fact that as a result of climate change, the Lake Chad Basin has been eaten up by about 90% of its original size, which of course what that means to the population there. And he also described that this area as the largest conflict spot in sub-Saharan Africa, and which also has brought about crisis of governance, crisis of the environment, and so on and so forth. Now, he went on to let us know that the insurgency now has been transformed into business, whereby there are new actors in this business. The original actors, Shokau and Co, have all gone. Most of them are dead. And this is related to what he mentioned as war economy. So it's a entirely new thing we're experiencing now, not the original insurgency itself. He also mentioned that aside the impact of the environment, we're dealing with casualties in terms of the number of people that died, and also about 6 million people have so far been displaced. And he focused also on the background on geography of the state, which he variously described the issue and the challenges, including the issue of resource governance deficit, that is vital. The ground that has been so vital has been impacted by insurgencies through various means. He mentioned that the part of the challenges is that of state collapse, where he in which there are so much movement of small arms from those countries as a result of state collapse into the Lake Chad region, thereby exacerbating the conflict. Also, he made mention of the fact that in his case study, he found out that Boko Haram is not a homegrown phenomenon. It's something that has been based on the Wahhabi ideology. It was imported. So that angle is an issue that we need to take note of. Of course, he made mention that since we are talking of environment, that the environment is the first victim of war. Remember, we've always been told that the truth is the first victim of war. But the environment is the first victim of war, and he gave several reasons why it is so, including the toxicology of the ecology of the Northeast, which he categorized into hot zone, warm zone, and cold zone, giving them the various descriptions. He made mention of the impact of the insurgency on the air and water, which has led to contamination. And also said as a result of that, there is a key challenge, health challenge in Borno right now that has to do with renal failure. Most of in the university teaching hospital or the general hospitals, they are dealing with so many patients that have to do with renal diseases. And this is as a result of the impact of war, of the insurgency in the area. And of course, he mentioned of that impact too on the biodiversity of the area, in addition to drought and desertification that we're dealing with as a result of climate change. One more very important issue has to do with chronic food security, which has been brought in as a result of this issue because of intensive bombings, as he mentioned, that destroy agricultural lands. That has affected farming in the area, and as a result of degradation of the land. Also that there are issues of unexploited munitions, particularly threat of depleted uranium depletions as a result of Air Force bombing. So some of these are some of the impact he mentioned on the environment, which I thought are very far-reaching, and things that need to be looked at very well. So I'm just giving this a little summary of what he has presented. I thought generally that the presentation was excellent. He brought out quite a lot of issues that we need to delve into. Each of the issues can be taken as a topic of research on its own and be dealt with. And on this note, I want to give the floor so that anybody who has something to add as a way of contribution, something to critique and, in the presentation, and so on and so forth, is free to do so. We have, let me see, we'll have about 20 minutes for that. How we go about it is that if you want to make an input, please raise your hand. There is a sign for doing that so that you'll be called upon to do that. Thank you very much for listening.
Professor Akim Tijani is raising up his answer.
Okay,
General,
Professor Tijani.
Okay.
Thank
Professor
you.
Akim Tijani, go ahead, please.
Thank you very much, sir, and good afternoon. First, let me commend Professor Tar for being able to marry well, to some extent, academic scholarship with policy, given his current position. And let me also thank him for representing the Society for Peace Studies and Practice as a fellow of that distinguished academic society. I think his thesis, Double Jeopardy, will forever remain green in our memory, more importantly, in bringing about further discourse to interrogate the challenges, the issues, historicizing the complexity of the situation. And on that note, in order not to speak forever or represent, I noted 4 questions that I would like him to take a shot at, or we can discuss them. Number 1, my first question is, I'm wondering whether there are African experts with postulations or concepts on the subject, environmental context of insurgency. Because when he presented the concept, the theories, he was mentioning all these string names, European names. I would like you to please shed light. There must have been a Dambazau, a Fayomi, that must have researched and come up with this concept that we need to also propagate as opposed to the white folks. And I have no reservation or apology for that. It is high time we start lifting up our own people for scholarship, because they will not cite us, but we keep citing them. Number 2, what are you doing as a commissioner to remove or limit the quote-unquote edict, you mentioned edict, from the insurgents? That's number 2. Number 3, what are your policy benchmark to mitigate the situation? And I think 2 and 3 goes together. And then lastly, this is a question that has always come up when we talk about this issue. Is insurgency terrorism? Is terrorism insurgency? Kindly shed more light from your perspective. Again, I thank you for educating us. I have learned from your presentation as many would have. Thank you very much. Stay blessed.
Yeah, Professor Tar, do you want to respond? How do you want to respond? One after the other?
Well, it depends. You are the chair, sir. You can decide. I think it's better we take a couple of.
Let it be your
My view is let's take a couple of observations and questions. Then I come in instead of one by one.
Okay. What of
Yes,
Sahid? Sahid, you're next, please.
Okay, thank you. Yes, sir. Thank you very much, sir, General. And thank you very much, Professor Usman Tar. I'm very happy to listen to you speak once again and on a very topical issue that you have spoken on. I just wanted probably to add to the various environmental security issues that you have itemized, and I will ask whether it is also good that we add that to it. And what is that? From my own observation too, I observe since the beginning of the insurgency, especially since the time that Boko Haram took some parts, some local government in states like Adamawa, Borno, and Yobe. We have seen changing dynamics of population settlement, for example, which makes certain environments more congested, than the other. And I'm thinking that that is also an environmental issue. For example, in Adamawa here, you find areas like Madagali, Michika, that are very proximate to Borno State, being very scanty. But you find Mubi, for example, and Yola, highly congested. Yeah, and I think that is also the same pattern in Borno State, for example, where you see the Maiduguri metropolitan being more congested than any other part. And also in Yobe State too, Damaturu has attracted more people, especially from the hinterland where the insurgent group is still attacking. And so you have large population settlements in more area that put a lot of pressure on available resources within the area. Isn't this also part of the environmental security issue that we can talk about, sir? Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very much, Said. Any other person, please? Any other hand raised? Okay, Professor Tar, can you respond to those two?
Thank you, General. Let me start with Professor Hakim Tijani. Actually, I met him at accreditation, I think at Alikima University before he moved to US. Professor, thank you very much for your 4 questions. I think the 4 questions are actually 3. And the first question is not a question, actually it's a kind of rebuttal. Why does the paper privilege a lot of foreign scholars? Please, the food paper has more African scholars mentioned than foreign scholars. And we share in your sentiment with regards to privileging African perspectives on issues of, insurgency, environment, and so on. Actually, we have a book in press right now, Conflict and Insecurity in the Lake Chad Basin. And Said, the person that spoke just now, is actually a co-author with me in that book, with 2 other scholars. And 50% or more of that book, not the whole of that book is by African scholars, and most of the chapters are dealing with African issues, and I think only one author is French. So we are doing a lot. We are together in that campaign. Don't worry, sir. What am I doing as and thank you very much, sir, for your comment regarding my modest struggle to combine policy with scholarship. It's not easy, but others have done it in the past. So I'm doing my best. And Jega is my role model, actually. I work under Professor Bawagana Umar Zulum, who is a very prolific, governor, and he has already set the state in motion towards recovery. There is a 25-year development plan that when I joined the government, I joined the second tenure. So a lot of paperwork has been done already. Policy writing has been done already. There's a 25-year development plan, which I want to emphasize here. The plan has 7 pillars, and each of the pillars takes care of a particular, very strong matter in society. For example, the environment is one, the economy is one, agriculture, health systems. So we are doing a lot, and in each of these, even in the second tenure, the quantum of projects that are already, executed is more than 2,000. And, at the end of each year, the projects that are executed are being documented. So there is a first verdict, second verdict. When 6th verdict is ready, 7th verdict is going now. That will showcase the, what the government has done. So I'm just a small player in a big system, in a big campaign under Governor Zulum to recover Borno. By the time he's done with the second tenure, already we are seeing a lot of impact. Borno will be much, much better than many states of the Federation. 25-year development is just one policy. There is a sustainable solution to human displacement 2024. There's an infrastructure master plan, there's agriculture master plan. These are all concrete documents. And there's also, institution building. There's the humanitarian agency, the Borno State Agency for Sustainable Development, Partnership, and Humanitarian Affairs. That agency is like a superimposed, is like interministerial agency reporting straight directly to the governor with regards to everything humanitarian. So there is focus not only on sectoral, but also intersectoral matters. And I'm just part of that team under Governor Zulum. Your fourth question, I think the second and the third I have answered it. Your fourth question is insurgency terrorism or is terrorism insurgency? I think that is an academic matter. It depends on how you see it. But by and large, the two are like Siamese twins. They are the same to the extent that insurgents, by and large, they carry out terrorist activities. Okay? So most insurgents are, all of them are terrorists. But not all terror groups are insurgents. Some terror groups, they don't have mission, they don't have objective, they are just bunch of ideologues. They don't even have land. They are just, a bunch of ideologues carrying out nefarious activities. So insurgents are called insurgents because they are determined to dislodge the host state and build an alternative state that is usually based on narrow construction of the state. So I think these are all theoretical matters, and that is much I can say about it. Said, Dr. Said, his full name is Said Owonikoko. He works at the Modiwadaba University, Yola. You raise a very, very important issue, not a question. How conflict has distorted settlement pattern in the Northeast. Borno State is a very good example. Not only the insurgents, even the armed forces, at some points in time, they realized that the terrorists have, infiltrated the local communities, towns and villages. So a decision was taken, I think, during Bra time, to dispel many villages in northern part of the state, to the extent that today you will go for 50 kilometers, you will not see a single village. And most of these villages, because they were built on mud, not cement, they have already disappeared off the land. And when the government decided to resettle communities, it became very clear that it is impossible to return those villages, because it will mean that for each village there should be a military unit defending it. There should be, please don't talk. There should be police unit defending. That is not possible. So what the government is doing in terms of resettlement is what we call mega villages and mega cities. Mega villages, a village will be identified, converted into a town. All the surrounding villages, radius of 30, 40 kilometers, they will converge in that mega village, and they will be surrounded with a parapet, 30, 40, 50 kilometers, 100 kilometers of parapet, sometimes parallel parapets at a heavy cost. But once those parapets are ready, the people will settle within that mega village, and they will do farming, they will do everything. Government will dig boreholes, government will build schools, and those schools are very safe because there will be concentration of security forces on those mega villages. And so far, we have been able to resettle over 100 villages using this methodology. But that also means that a lot of villages have gone, a lot of memories and histories have disappeared. People are very, connected to their villages. We usually, in the north, we look at our villages as where our souls are. Our umbilical cords are buried there. We even have, expression for that. All this is gone now. Most villages, towns, they are gone. In those mega villages, in Borno State, there is what you call market day. I think it's common in Nigeria. Market day, each village has a market day. But for mega villages, we now identify 2 market days that will serve that village. Next village, 2 market days, so that people will be secured to travel into that village and carry out the economic activities. In essence, insurgency has probably forever transformed the settlement pattern in Borno State. For as long as I can see, for as long as terrorism exists and insurgents exist and they carry out their nefarious activities, for as long as they threaten those who venture outside of the security corridors, each community surrounded by parapet is called safe corridor. Outside of that corridor, there is no guarantee. Armed forces are doing they are doing patrols. They are carrying out air interdiction on daily basis. In those areas, villages are wiped away, water systems are wiped away, infrastructures are wiped away, and it's a very horrible situation. But we have to do something, and that is what the Borno State government is doing. We are restoring bigger villages. We are asking surrounding communities to converge in one place so that they can be secured. So that's what we are doing. We hope that sometime soon, other, nuclear villages too shall be resettled. But this is in the long-term plan. The immediate and medium-term plan is to resettle cities and, improvise mega villages. But it's a historical alteration. It's very unfortunate, but it is what it is. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Tar. If I may add, like Professor Tar earlier mentioned that insurgency and terrorism are like siamese twins. As a matter of fact, in training, we train for CT's coin. That is counter-terrorism, counter-insurgency. So you don't expect whereby there is insurgency somewhere with terrorism. So they go together. Secondly, remember that in his presentation, he mentioned that close to 6 million people have been displaced. And I believe that this changing dynamics in population that Dr. Said mentioned is part of the demographic impact. And if you go to Kano, places like Kano and Kaduna today, you will find that within this period, the population of those cities have, increased. There are quite a lot of people in Kano who have been displaced from Northeast and from Northwest now because of the banditry, who have moved into these cities, either because they have relations there or because they find it very easy to see. And most of these people are undocumented as IDPs, but they are in fact IDPs. So it's part of the operations and so on. Hello?
We can hear you.
We can hear you, sir.
Yes.
General, we can hear you.
We can hear you, sir.
Okay. Comments on this?
There is Professor Noah Atta, dear sir, with his hand raised up.
Professor, we also want to add
my
the
device is
question
trying to. Okay. Okay, carry on, Professor. Atta. Professor Noah Atta.
Yeah, thank you, General, and thank you, Professor Tar, for the presentation on the impact on the environment of the insurgency. I am always curious about the victims of insurgency, namely the people, the soldiers, and the insurgents themselves. We hear from the media that, 100 and so have been killed, 20-something have been killed. I'm curious, where were they buried? Because most often than not, these things happened in the forest. And don't we think that most of them would have been left unburied and thereby affecting the water bodies and the ecosystem, if possible? Thank you.
Any other person?
So take the question in the chat room by Dr. Adiat Abiodun. Then Professor Mofolabo Ajaishoyega can then come in. But let me quickly read the question. Professor Tar, if you're hearing me, it says, how can technology be enhanced to combat the role of ungoverned spaces in the combat against insurgency in northeastern Nigeria? That is the question by Dr. Adiat Abiodun, which is in the chat room. Professor Omofolawo, please.
Oh, yeah. Thank you very much, sir, for your presentation, Professor Atta. I did get a lot of information from it that normally we don't get in the public, because there is a dearth of information in the country, especially about these insurgencies and terrorism. And I'm delighted to learn, especially when you were answering questions, of exactly what the state government is doing, resettlement, rebuilding, and so on. But as the states or the officials, government officials resettle and also researchers do, I'm sure the insurgents and their funders are not resting. They are also getting more and more ammunition. So if we don't, so my question is, what are we really doing? First, to deter, to stop these insurgents, these terrorists, and two, to go after their funding, because the transition from religious conviction to business corporation, there's a lot of money behind it. And like I said, we don't get enough information. So there is a lot of rumors circulating. And if you have come across this information in your research, I'll be happy. I think they will help us. Thank you.
Chairman, can I respond?
Yes, please go ahead.
Thank you very much. Let me start with Professor Noah Atta. Prof, thank you very much. I think you raised a very serious question. Where are the dead, the war casualties? Where are they buried? Or are they abandoned in the field? It depends on the situation. It depends on the location too. But let me say that the armed forces of Nigeria, as a matter of SOP, they don't abandon their corpses in the field. They try as much as possible to evacuate their corpses, and they are buried at the Malari Cantonment Cemetery. There is now a national, a new policy where, you know, a fallen hero will be buried at the nearest cemetery, military cemetery. So they are no longer carried to south or, you know, even within the north. They are just buried where they fell with national honors. So if you go to Memalari Cantonment, if you visit the cemetery, we visit the cemetery for each burial. Every few days, we attend burial, and we offer our support. It's a very, very, very sad experience, you know, to see the number of, you know, war casualties, the soldiers and the officers and men, you know. But for the rest, Borno State is an Islamic community where people fall. They are usually quickly buried after, of course, the statutory autopsy and so on, if possible. Otherwise, after identification, they are buried. Only few, and the few that are left behind are usually the terrorists themselves. The terrorists too, they work very hard to evacuate their victims. But we have situations, and I have witnessed one, where they attacked a unit at the time that the unit was well prepared, because they have, talking of technology, they have you know, long-range camera with night vision capability. They were studying them. The unit was studying them in real time. They were moving it. The unit was really ready, and they allowed the terrorists to move into the killing spots where of course, the unit obliterated them, including 3 commanders. There was nothing that the terrorists, the insurgents, did not do to come and evacuate. They had to leave behind their commanders. Of course, those commanders rot in the middle of the barrack. Nobody touched them. The armed force, the army said, "Come and touch them if you are crazy." Of course, they tried, and the unit continued to repel them, and they were left there. And in order to avoid rotting, they were just, you know, discarded. They were dispensed. So this fear of so many bodies rotting in the field, I think it's a bit over-exaggerated. Of course, there may be few that are left behind, and of course, it will affect the water system. But however, we also have other stories of farmers going to farm and then the terrorists attack them and they were thrown into the water and fish eating them. We also hear of those stories. And of course, the water system get contaminated, fishes get contaminated. So these two happen. But let me say that the frequency and the quantum, first, is not very clear. Two, is not that much. I wouldn't say it's that much. It's not like, too much in terms of thousands, maybe a few tens once in a while. So that is it. Now, Architect Aminat Ajeni Fuja Abubakar, how can technology be enhanced to counter insurgency? Well, the armed forces has over the years changed its tactics from manual to semi-autonomous, I would say. There is a lot of use of drones nowadays. They are using a lot of high caliber ammunition, and the use of cameras with night vision capabilities is high, very high. Even the terrorists, they are using technology. So the armed forces is working very hard to outpace the terrorists. Recently, the Boko Haram, they are sending drones with projectiles to drop in their targets. Very serious. So the armed forces are building capacity to jam those technologies, and they are doing very well. I have to say that without fear of equivocation. So technology is getting its way gradually into the arsenals of our armed forces, and I'm very happy about that. I think it's under General Buhari that change started. If not for Americans, attempt to torpedo or attempt to acquire equipment, we would have done so very much earlier, and the impact would have been different. But nevertheless, I think we are doing well. On our part, even the subnational entities, we are also supporting the armed forces. Units will report about this and that. They need the camera. The state governments, various state governments, do support the armed forces with auxiliary support. But let me say that defense acquisition is in the exclusive list, and the armed forces, the Ministry of Defense, they are doing their best in order to, reinforce and resupply our armed forces. And technology, a lot of new technologies are finding their way into the, armory of our armed forces. So we are seeing changes. We are on the ground, and we are seeing real changes. Professor Mofola, issue of terror financing, I think is a global issue. This much has been noticed in the global community, and from the UN to ECOWAS to AU, there are a lot of legislation and a lot of protocols that are dealing with terror financing. It is very difficult to use the usual means in order to transfer fund for terror activities. But let me also say that as new legislations are being built, the criminals are also building newer ways and means of transferring resources between themselves and within themselves. Much of it virtually, much of it by way of trust, because from one region, by word of mouth, they can transfer bond, and that bond will be transferred into assets instead of cash flow. There is no liquidity. Just by word of mouth, cash can be transferred virtually into bond or into assets and into goods that can now be brought in or taken out. So that one is there. But I think I would say that both unilaterally and multilaterally, states are doing their best in order to close the loops on terror financing. But they should not rest on their oars, because the terrorists are developing new ways and means of countering legislation in order to overcome that problem. And without global terror financing, there is ongoing debate about whether USAID is funding the Boko Haram or not. The debate is going on. much of the funding is actually coming from state entities, but we cannot say for sure. But otherwise, it's very difficult to say, if these funds are coming from private sources. I think the resources that are needed to execute their nefarious activities so much that it's not possible for individuals to fund that. There must be some states behind all this. I think I would say this is one area of research that we need to look into. Not for name calling, but for us to be sure so that it will inform intelligence, it will inform public policy on how best to counter, come up with the best, practice for ensuring that the terrorists did not lay their hands on fund in order to fund their nefarious activities.
Thank you very much. Haji Hassani of VON.
Thank you so very much, General Dambazau. It's a great pleasure to see you again. Thank you, Professor Tar, for a fantastic presentation. My question really is with regards to the issue of capacity to run these mega cities and mega villages that you have set up. In addition to the requisite skilled personnel you need deployed in such mega cities and mega villages, as well as those who would also cater for the sick and the injured in the hospitals. What are the measures that you've put in place, and how do you sustain capacity building to be able to keep managing this new cities and new villages? Thank you.
All right. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Those mega cities and villages are not reinvention. They are existing villages. For example, Monguno, Chibok. If you go to Monguno, it's larger than the Monguno, historical Monguno, because it includes surrounding villages, Ngurno, Merari, all those villages, Yoyo. Those villages, they are vulnerable if they are the people are allowed to go and settle 20 kilometers, 50 kilometers from Monguno, because it's not within the parapet. Any village that is outside of the parapet, you should move in. Or if you don't want, you move to another location of your choice. But don't go and settle there because it's not a safe zone. So it's not invention. Monguno already has infrastructure on ground. And the infrastructure, the construction of infrastructure is doubled, quadrupled. And, there are budgetary provisions for all infrastructure, schools, hospitals. We have 4 or 5 hospitals, some even specialist hospital, orthopedic, and so on. Schools are also expanded. We have polytechnic. We have a lot of secondary schools. So, instead of dispersing the secondary schools are also brought in. The existing ones are expanded. The teachers of those that are in the outlying villages are invited to come and join the existing secondary schools, which are expanded with more classes and so on. So it's actually a matter of, infrastructure, upgrading and increasing the quantum of infrastructure, and also of the capacity of the professionals. Teachers, for example, there are more, colleges of education now in Biu, in Bama, and the intake is increased, and the incentives for teachers are increased, especially those that are serving in the villages. Their salary is higher, and local education secretaries are higher. Some of them with PhDs, some of them are even professors, local education secretaries, and they are doing very well. That is just education. Healthcare, the same innovations are being introduced in the healthcare. So these villages, mega villages, they are now looking good, because it is easier to actually concentrate people in these mega settings than to allow them to disperse in a, very large, area. Borno State's landmass is 72,000 square kilometers. It's very large. So for now, in the short term, the mega villages are doing well, and the capacity that you're talking about, a lot of work and thinking has been injected into the capacity of the professionals. And they are doing well. The school intake is high, but also the teacher-student ratio is not bad if you go to those places. Same for healthcare. Same for water systems.
Yeah.
And so on.
The station, I presume. Thank you very much.
I am done, sir.
Hello? Yeah, the last one, we'll take one last question.
Okay.
Before we'll take one last question. One last question. Somebody is raising hands here. Who is it? No name.
Yeah, General, before
It
we
just says
close
iPhone.
General, before we close the session, there are one or two questions in the chat room which we may want to draw the attention of Professor Tar. Professor Abiola Adejide asked the question, how has the resettlement pattern into mega cities affected the traditional governance patterns? Have some village heads given up their authorities to others? Then Professor Isaac Mbachu asked the question, no, he wasn't asking a question, he was just thanking you. But Professor Sunday Ododo asked a very pertinent question, which you may want to also address. There's a rife allegation that USAID is an international body being used to fund insurgencies and terrorism in Nigeria and elsewhere. What is your take on this allegation, considering your field awareness and experience? Also, is the presence of NGOs in Borno a blessing or otherwise? Dr. Abiad Abiodun asked a second question. Can we define the environmental implications of terrorism in Northeast as intertwined with earth insecurity, given the cases of renal failure you have cited in your submission, sir? The iPhone, Professor Akanji, please. Oh, that is Professor Musba Akanji. Yeah, please go ahead and ask your question, please.
Okay, thank you. This is Professor Tajuddin Akanji, not Musba Akanji. But all the same, is still Akanji. Yes, thank you very much, Professor Tar, for your lecture. And I think I want to praise the effort of the government for this infrastructure thing that you're talking about. Because I had the opportunity of serving on a committee that looked at the detainees of Boko Haram. And most of those people that were interviewed had this problem of access from security agencies to communities where attacks are taking place. And some young people that were in detention were given specific assignment to make sure that those roads are impassable, creating ditches so that even the APC vehicles cannot pass. So I think with the idea of these mega cities, then working on the infrastructure, especially the road infrastructure for these people to be able to access the place once they call them, is going to make it easy for the security agencies to have the support of the communities to be able to do the things that they need to do. But I need to find out from Professor Tar the extent to which this cooperation among the different stakeholders is being worked upon, because most times people look at the security agencies alone to be able to address some of these issues. How are they engaging some of these communities? More so, majority of those people that were interviewed as at that particular time claimed that their profession is farming, and many of them said they have never been to school. Without exaggeration, about 90% of about 5,000 detainees that I had interaction with said they had never gone to any school. And you said you are now creating colleges of education and all those things. what is the effort on literacy? This is local literacy development among these people so that they can be helped to get some level of education even without going to formal schools. Thank you.
Professor Tar, go ahead.
I'm done with my question. I'm just waiting for us.
Professor Tar, go ahead and respond.
Not connected. Okay.
Hello.
Maybe Professor Goyemi Tunjoga, we can ask his question.
Can you hear me?
Okay, go ahead, Prof.
My internet went off. I just devised another means. Yes, sir.
Go ahead,
I didn't hear what was said because at the point that the Prof was saying, hello, can you hear me?
Yes, can hear you.
Thank you, sir. The Prof said he was drawing my attention to something. Then at that point, my phone went up, the one with the hotspot. So I had to open another one. What was the issue?
So can I ask a question again?
Yes, Professor Akanji, repeat your question,
okay.
please.
Yes, I said that during the time that I worked in that region, I discovered that lack of access by security agencies to communities where helps are needed, especially when the roads are deliberately destroyed, even by children that are put on the road to create ditches on the road, as being one of those things that affected the ability of security agencies to be able to access the communities where helps are needed. And now creating a mega city by the state government and improving on infrastructure is actually going to go a very long way to fight that. So I am encouraging and praising that effort. But I now also said that most of the people that were interviewed, about 90% of them said that they had never been to any school. They do not have any literacy. Most of them, when you ask them what is your profession, they say they are farming. And I think it's one of those things that is making this insurgency to get promoted. And you mentioned that the government is creating colleges of education, improving the welfare of the teachers to be able to improve on education. I said it will be advisable if you work on the area of literacy, the informal sector education, where people don't have to go to formal school to get education, because what these people need to know is this literacy that will inform them, that will give alternative narratives. Because when you ask most of them, why are you in this work? They say, but I did the banning. That is not a religious obligation. So I am just saying that as part of the effort of the government that is talking about improving on education as part of the infrastructure, that they should consider the non-formal education sector, the literacy growth, the literacy development, so that this literacy can help the citizens to be able to understand the risk around them. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I got the. I think most of your points are actually observations, but let me just respond to them. With regards to the destruction of roads, yes, not children really, but the insurgents, they do come out from time to time to lay ambush, to plant IEDs on the roads. And don't forget also that the roads, some of the roads in Borno State have overstate their lifespan. This is a national pathology, really. Most of the roads, most, in fact, were built in the 70s and 80s. So they have already exhausted their natural lifespan and they needed to be rebuilt. And they are being rebuilt, but, you know, as usual, because of the insurgency, the process is very slow. There is budgetary provision, and also the Northeast Development Commission has, you know, resource on standby for rebuilding the roads in the East. They have a plan. Hello?
Are we missing?
Hello? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can
Can
hear
you hear me? Okay.
Yes, we can
so
hear
there
you.
is an ongoing effort to rebuild the roads. The Borno State Government has infrastructure master plan. There is budgetary provision for, you know, building intercity roads, and all the local government areas are now open except two, except Abadam and the Guzamala. All the rest are populated, they are open, and the roads are being reconstructed. But of course, we still have challenges of the IEDs and so on. So for us, there is hope. With regards to the education, what I said was without prejudice to the fact that the Borno State government is also investing heavily in the non-formal education sector. In fact, there is also an attempt to even connect the formal and the non-formal. Let me give an example. The Arabic and Sangaya Board is an agency established to connect the Arabic and Islamic studies, the Sangaya and the Al-Majiri system with Western education system. So the Al-Majiris are also subjected to, there's a curriculum that is already promulgated, where and the Al-Majiri, the schools, the Al-Majiri schools are also, census is conducted on them and they are gazetted. So they, you know, they are now put under structured system of education, but not all of them, but most of them are there, and the rest are also being captured on, you know, gradual basis. We have so many of those Al-Majiri schools that are already captured with supervisors, and the teachers are also subjected to pedagogy training and so on and so forth. So even the formal and the non-formal, we are trying to link the two, but we have also built the non-formal. For example, we have built, the state government has built entrepreneurship centers and skills acquisition centers. These are not your usual primary, secondary, university type of education. They are skills-based education, and graduates can come out in 6 months. They don't have to go to secondary school to qualify. All they need is the skills in order to be carpenter, in order to be aluminum, you know, worker, or, you know, POP, plaster of Paris worker, in order to be plumber. And those schools are built in all the 27 local governments. Some have already been finished, about 50%. 50% are ongoing, and they have already started working. Those, like the ones in view, they have even graduated their first, second sets. And some of them, each candidate at the point of graduation is given starter pack to go and start business. Some are, you know, given employment or employment support to join existing, you know, bakeries, existing carpentry shops, and so on and so forth. So a lot of informal capacity building is also ongoing, in addition to, of course, teacher education, in addition to primary school education, secondary school education, and also university. The Borno State now has, I think, has 3 universities: University of Maiduguri, Borno State University, and a private university. Of course, we have the Army University in Biu, and also there's university for
Are you done? Hello? Okay. Hello? Can you hear me?
We can hear you, sir.
Can you hear me, sir?
Yes,
Hello?
can hear you. Can hear you now. Go ahead.
Can hear you.
Where did I stop? I kept talking. I don't even know where you stopped hearing me.
So you are
Hello?
talking of the efforts being made in the educational sector, including the universities, higher education. That's why you stopped.
Yes, okay, the universities, I said that already there are 3 functional universities, one federal, one state, one private. Okay, there's also the one in Azare University of Federal University of Health Sciences, that is second federal. There's the Army University, third federal, one state. And there is a new University of Agriculture and Entrepreneurship that is in the Senate, and it has gone far. So across the board, formal, informal, and mixed education, hybrid education, they are all receiving attention of the state government. That is the point I was trying to make.
Okay. Professor Isaac. Professor Isaac.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
We
Hello, sir.
don't have much time. I say we have exhausted our time. Do you want us to take more?
Yes,
or
sir.
we just... okay. Dr. Adayat Abiodun. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you very much, General. Professor Isaac already read my question the other time, but I just want to read it again since Prof was offline. So I just have a second question to what I've asked before. So I just want to ask that, can we define the environmental implications of terrorism in the Northeast as intertwined with health insecurity, given the cases of renal failure that Prof already cited the other time when he was making his submission?
Okay, have you gotten it, Professor Tar?
Yes, sir. It is important to appreciate the connection between the layers of security. Barry Buzan identified about 16 layers. I think Wally say expanded that to 36. So when you talk of environmental security, it's also correlated with health security, correlated with social security. So it is important to appreciate how they are interconnected instead of looking at them in silos. So if the environment collapses, if it degrades, it cannot provide healthy food, or if the water systems are depleted and decontaminated, of course, that will affect the health of the population. And if the population is not healthy, it cannot till the farm, and so on and so forth. There is even moral security. If there is moral repugnance, and moral bankruptcy in society, people will go about destroying the environment as if the environment is an enemy. So there is connection between the 16 or 36 layers of security, as the case may be. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other? Any other? I think.
I think we should Muslimeka at this level. I think we need to release you, sir.
Okay. Thank you very much. Maybe some others will want to continue, but this come to the form, to formally, close this dialogue, which I thought was excellent. Starting with the presentation by Professor Usman Tar. We gained quite a lot. So far, we need to look at some of them and carry out some detailed research. I'm glad that Professor Akanji is here because he has had some experience in the Northeast. And of course, Professor Isaac, you are the champion in this. So I believe that quite a lot has been achieved this evening, and I want to use this opportunity once again to express my gratitude for giving the chance to chair this dialogue. And I hope that the next dialogue will even be much better than this. Thank you very much. Thank you all.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, General.
Any final comments before I close?
President, sir, we have several visitors on the platform.
Yeah.
And I think before you close, you need to introduce yourself. We don't want a situation where you be met in a marketplace, and then our colleagues will say, we saw this man on, on the dialogue, during the dialogue series. Thank you.
But you have given us a cue. I was going to appreciate the very many guests that joined us for this session. I saw the immediate past president of the Nigerian Academy of Science, Professor Kanembraid. I don't know whether she's still online. Kanembraid FAS, she has been online. So
I'm still here.
Thank you so much, man. It's
Congratulations. Very interesting.
Thank you, man. So good to see you on our platform again. I'd like to appreciate all the various guests. Alaji Sam Mohammed was there, Alaji Bunu Monguno, and quite a number of others that are not our members but are important personalities in the country. Professor Nosa Wensibe is online. He recently completed his term as Vice Chancellor of Caleb University. I'd like to congratulate you on the successful conclusion of your tenure. I'd like to appreciate all the members of the Academy who have joined this platform today. And I can't be mentioning us one by one. The FP was here, Professor Kachi was there, Professor Olabafemi was there, Professor Mofolabo Ajaishoyinka, of course, has been since we started. Professor Abiola Nigeria has been online. Quite a number of us have been here, Kamadibayo and Co. Let me appreciate all of us for being here. The intersection of policy and academia has been very well demonstrated in this presentation. And the fact that Professor Tar has been a very square peg in a square hole, or round peg in a round hole in Borno State has been demonstrated. We hope that his efforts and those of his colleagues in the cabinet will yield long-lasting fruits in terms of bringing back peace to the region. I'd like to appreciate Professor Usman Tar for the presentation, for taking time to speak to us. If you go through the platforms, chat room, you see so many commendations of your effort. So I'm not saying anything that has not been spoken. Let me appreciate General Dambazau, General Dambazau, for taking time to chair this session. As we heard, he's in Cairo and he has joined us. I really appreciate you. I hope that all of us will be able to join us again in future. From the next meeting, we'll be starting about 30 minutes earlier at 4:30 and endeavor to finish by 5:45 at the latest because the onset of Ramadan. We don't want to wear out our members. I will close by obeying Professor Albert. My name is Shola Akinrade. I'm the president of the Academy, at least until August. Hopefully, our next president is actually online. The incoming president is online. He will introduce himself when it is time. Professor Andrew, I'd like to welcome you as well. Thank you very much. And I'm looking forward to seeing all of us again at the next session. Have a pleasant evening. Thank you once and all. Ajia from Voice of Nigeria, thank you. God bless.
Thank you.
General Dambazau, thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, Prof. Thank you.
Thank you. Sir.
Thank you all.
Thank you, General.
Pleasure.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Thank you for
Professor Tar, well done. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Professor Tar, my brother.
Yes.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Oh, you are showing your face now at the last Professor Tar.
Thank you.
Right.
I appreciate.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye. 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 Bye.
Okay.